Thank you all for being here this afternoon. I'm pleased to introduce Fabian Alfi, who is a professor of Italian. He's been at the University of Arizona since 1997, after receiving his PhD from the University of Wisconsin at Madison. He taught for 2 years in Wisconsin before coming to the University of Arizona, where he teaches courses in Italian language, literature, culture, and folklore. In 2008, he was honored with the College of Humanities Distinguished Teaching Award. His research focuses on medieval comic literature and includes books on Cecco and Giolieri and Dante. And now I am delighted to introduce the 2021 College of Humanities Alumna of the Year, Jessica Polsky. Jessica graduated from the University of Arizona in 1998 with a BA in Italian and a BFA in dance, and she is a wonderful example of what a College of Humanities education can do for you. She has turned her degrees in dance and Italian into a career as a popular actress and TV personality in Italy, starring on the hit primetime sitcom Café, among numerous other roles and appearances. Throughout her career, Jessica has been able to communicate the human experience to others who learn to empathize and connect with her and the diverse characters she brings to life. I am proud to introduce you to a leader and a champion of Italian studies, Jessica Polsky, the Alumna of the Year for the College of Humanities.
Honey, we got a moon that's full and a dance floor made of grass. Your blue eyes make me wanna make this evening last. Put on an old song, put on that new dress. Tomorrow's coming, but it ain't here yet. We got stars outside, just you and I got this feeling rising through the ceiling, singing, ooh, darling, you got me feeling alright. Let me show you I was made to hold you. So lose your shoes and dance with me, dance with me, dance with me tonight. Dance with me tonight. We can just forget the deadlines, leave them in the 9 to 5. Let's not waste a night like this, let's hold on tight. We got stars outside and it feels just right. I got this feeling rising through the ceiling, singing, ooh, darling, you got me feeling alright. Let me show you I was made to hold you. So lose your shoes and dance with me, dance with me, dance with me tonight. Dance with me tonight. My heart beats fast when we're moving slow. Just one touch sends me out of control. Whatever you do, baby, don't let go. Just don't let go. I got this feeling rising through the ceiling, singing, ooh, darling, you got me feeling alright. Let me show you I was made to hold you. So lose your shoes and dance with me. Oh, I got this feeling rising through the ceiling, singing, ooh, darling, you got me feeling alright. Yeah, let me show you I was made to hold you. So lose your shoes and dance with me, dance with me, dance with me
everyone. Hello, everyone at home. Ciao a tutti anche in Italia. Thank you, everyone, for being here today. First of all, let me apologize. I've been blabbing so much since being here for homecoming. I've actually lost a little bit of my voice. So we have the Barry White version of Jessica today. So thank you for your patience. I just wanted to take a moment. We're going to talk, as I understand, right, Fabian, we're going to talk, there'll be questions. I don't know what they are, but my story only makes sense if I can rewind a little bit, because it's very important to understand what took place prior to this, although this was awesome, and there's more yet to come. But so I was very lucky. I knew at birth, basically what I wanted to do. My mom is on the front row and she's nodding and saying yes. So there are home videos of me at age 4 saying, when I grow up, I'm going to be a dancer. This made life, on one hand, full of some, compromises and some sacrifices. I missed out on some stuff because I was always at dance class or traveling, but it also made things very easy because I had one destination. I had one thing I was going to do. And that was point A to point B. And point B was moving to New York and beginning my professional career as a dancer on Broadway. And point A was wherever I was in the 18 to 22 years before that. So it was very streamlined. That's all there was. All I had to do was align all of my choices with that one goal from the age of 5. So when I decided to come to the University of Arizona, it was not an accident. The deal I struck with my parents was, okay, you get to be a performer, but you will go to college. And I said, okay, so here's our compromise. I will go to college, but I can't sacrifice those 4 years of training. So I'm going to go to the university that has the best dance department that there is. And so that during those 4 years, I can continue to be improving what I do. So I'm even more ready to reach that point B. Remember, there's only for these years, point A and point B up till now. So I did all my research, and the University of Arizona, there was hands down, there was nowhere else that had a dance department to the caliber of the University of Arizona, and still today, to be quite honest. So that made the move here and the choice here very easy because it was still getting me to point B, and it was still aligned with what I knew I needed to do and achieve in this life. So I got here, and a performer's life in a university setting is very atypical. We're in classes and rehearsals and performances 7 days a week until 11 or 12 at night sometimes. And you can get really close to risking burning out, which was what I did not want to do because this had been my dream my whole life. So after my freshman year, I decided, okay, I come from this family of linguists. My entire family has studied abroad. They all speak multiple languages. I think it's my turn. I think I need to take a break so that I can come back to what I love and love it as much as I always have and get to point B, as had been the only plan up until then. And I said, okay, so maybe I'll take a semester off and study abroad. So I talked to my family, and there were some logical choices to study abroad. My mom and my brother had studied in France, and we had family friends there. And then my heritage is in Eastern Europe. There were all these kinds of things that would make sense, but none of them were interesting to me. And I couldn't explain exactly why, but I didn't want those. So I did what you did in 1996, which is probably going to be stunning to a lot of you youngsters out there. But we didn't really have the internet. We had these computer labs on campus that had these prehistoric computer-ish things that had a black screen and this sort of flashing amber text. And it wasn't the internet. It just was kind of a big paperweight. So what did you went to the physical place. I know that's probably shocking, but you took your body and you got on your bike and you went to the study abroad office, true story, and you sat on the floor and you flipped through physical brochures. So I don't even know if there's an office anymore because everything's online, but I was there for probably a month straight every day, sitting Indian style on the floor, flipping through brochures. And I think they probably got really tired of seeing me because I would take the bookshelf and just kind of throw everything on the floor and spread it out and open all the pages and see what looked good. So looking through, I said, gosh, I'm not finding, where should I go? Where should I go? And I flipped open one and it said Italy. I said, Italy? Well, what do I know about Italy? I don't know anyone there. I don't speak any Italian. I said, well, I know two things about Italy. Really good food and really cute boys. And I even bagged one of them who's here in the front row. But that evidently was enough because I started to hone in on this idea of Italy. And I called my mom and my dad and my brother with all of their traveling and studying abroad experience. And I said, what about Italy? And they said, Italy? Well, we don't have any connection. You would just show up there. We don't have anyone, And I said, I know. Well, I think I'll do that though. So Italy it was. And I showed up in Italy and I had this incredible, incredible experience at a language institute there. And I danced with a dance company while I was there. And I traveled all over Italy and all over Europe and I took advantage of my time there. And what happened basically was when I got back to the university after that semester, it was now the second semester of my sophomore year. And I just was supposed to come back and finish my dance degree as planned and go on to point B, which was finish the university and move to New York and dance. But a weird thing happened because I got back here and this experience in Italy, it refused to remain in my scrapbook. It refused to be a vacation. And I remember there were all these other kids at my language institute in Florence. And I remember feeling a distinct difference between my experience and theirs, that they were really, this was just kind of a fun fling for them. And I realized it was really taking root in me in a very different way. So I was taking my dance degree forward and I said, this thing just kept kind of yanking on my, apron strings and saying, I was not a trip. I was not a vacation. I was not just an experience to remain in your photo album. I need to take up some space in your life. So on a whim, I went to the Italian department and I said, what does an Italian degree take? And could I place out of any of the language based on the language I already speak? And we talked and they said, well, yes, but you're absolutely bonkers because you are now halfway through your sophomore year and you want to add a second degree. And I said, yes, and I'll tell you what's more. I only have a total of 4 years. So this degree and a half that I still have to finish, we're going to do in between now and my 4th year. And we decided to take on this challenge, myself and the Italian department. And it was absolutely one of the best decisions I'd ever made. And I had an incredible experience. And that is how I took that experience of studying abroad and that didn't want to remain in my scrapbook, and it became part of my life. So now I have a picture I want to show you guys. All right, so here's a little moment. So here, let me tell you guys what's happening here. So this was while I was studying in Florence, and one weekend, another girl at school with me and we saw some flyer in Florence for a blues festival in the middle of Chianti. I said, well, that sounds cool. So we did what backpackers, we hitchhiked into the middle of Tuscany and slept on the train station floor or whatever you do. And we went to these vineyards and so this moment is very profound for me because first of all, it was a blues festival in the middle of Tuscany, but we got there and it turned out to be that the theme of this year was Stevie Ray Vaughan. Now here's for anyone that knows the importance of that. I'm from Austin, Texas. Stevie Ray Vaughan is our baby. We have a statue of him in the middle of downtown. And what are the chances that an Austin, Texas girl is in the middle of a vineyard in Tuscany and there's a blues festival that's Stevie Ray Vaughan themed? So I had my kind of antennas up. I said, this is kind of a weird mystical experience. I also, side note, discovered that Stevie Ray Vaughan in Italian is Stevie Ray Vagon. So that bothered me a lot, but I didn't correct them. I stayed quiet, even though they called him Vagon all night. But anyways, so here is what's important about this picture for me, dancing in the middle of a vineyard. This moment of falling in love with Italy was the beginning of what I did here at the U of A and the degree I decided to pursue. But it was always to remain a hobby, as a compartmentalized other thing. In fact, when I first got to New York, I was kind of this novel girl who was a performer, but who spoke Italian, but the two things did not converge. This picture is important to me because it foretells things to come. I could not have known 5 years after this picture was taken that these two things would become one. You know, there's a famous Seinfeld episode, you might remember, where George Costanza finally introduces his girlfriend to his friends, and he has a meltdown. He says, "My worlds are colliding, the worlds are colliding." So here are my worlds colliding, but I didn't know it. I didn't have any idea that my A to B trajectory to become a professional dancer and performer was going to also encompass what I did in Italy. I just thought I had fallen in love with a place and a people and a language, and that was going to be this awesome hobby that would keep me sort of on my toes while I was also performing. So this picture is meaningful to me because I could not have imagined that this was going to be my future, that I was going to be performing and in Italy, and the two things would intersect in a certain time of my life. So this is what I believe that a humanities education does. I think my experience has been, and that of my family and everyone I know who has made sure to have a broad humanities education, is it leaves sort of this Hansel and Gretel crumb trail of where you can kind of follow along and pick things up and say, "Oh, this is cool. I didn't know I cared about this," or "I didn't know I was passionate about this thing," or "I didn't know I was talented at this thing." And that is what I'm so grateful for what I received here from the humanities department and from everything that they continue to do here. In fact, I've made so many discoveries since I've been home for homecoming of what the department does now. Now we have our own study abroad program with Professor Alfie, so which I would have loved to have had. But it's crucial that these types of programs, that humanities departments have the support they need, because there are people like me who thought they were A to B, but then there was like a little curveball. You know, I always think of it because I still got to B. So this does not represent a 180-degree turn from what my objectives and goals were. It was kind of like a 90-degree turn, but it was like kind of, I veered over here, but it was what we would say in Italian. We would say a valore aggiunto. It was an added bonus. It was an added value to what I already was doing. It gave me even more and even better to bring to the marketplace, to my career, and to my life. So it's nice to be humbled that you were short-sighted. I can admit that for those first 19 years of my life, I was short-sighted. I just thought A to B, but look at what I would have missed out had I not stumbled onto our humanities department. So that is what I wanted to preface for you guys. And now I'm going to welcome up Professor Alfie, hoping that he'll go easy on me. I don't know what the questions are, so applause for my interviewer.
Oh, no, applause to you.
Thank you.
I mean, you know, I have some prepared questions, but honestly, I want to keep talking about what you were just saying. I mean, I couldn't have said it better. One of the, I think all of us who teach, certainly in the languages, and I have a number of colleagues in the room, one of the things that we really notice is when we take students abroad, I mean, it really is a life-changing experience. And I thought that picture was beautiful. I mean, I don't know if you noticed, but I stood up and walked over so I could look at it more straight on, because it's just a beautiful photograph. And I'd like to see if we could just, you know, expound on that. I mean, it sounds like you found that a very changing experience.
Absolutely, absolutely. You know, there are moments of that time, and it's so formative just as a human being to study abroad or to go abroad alone, no less, because you really find out what you've got, if you've got bootstraps to pull yourself up by or not. And I have incredible memories of sort of moments of self during that. I remember, for who has not learned a language as an adult, because learning a language from scratch as an adult is different than when you're raised with it. It's a whole different brain operation. It was during the fall when Clinton was campaigning, and it was that year, it was 1996 elections. And this is, for who knows me, this is astounding, but I got to Italy and was so overwhelmed by not being able to communicate, I was mute. And I am not easily muted. So I was mute. I got there at the end of the summer. And until roughly right around the election, so it's a couple months, I would go to school every day and I would go to work with his dance company, which does not require that much language because we speak a common language as dancers and as movers. And I was literally mute because there was no outflow of language. I was just absorbing. And I remember a dam breaking. I remember being in a cafe and some guy was like chatting with me, and I had been sort of like miming up until then, like, where is the bathroom? Like it was awful. And I was not used to not being able to communicate because as artists, we're communicators by nature. And this guy had heard me, say something to the cashier, and he heard my accent and he said, "Oh, are you American?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "Well, what do you think of these elections?" I opened my mouth and I began this really sophisticated political debate explaining the American electorate system, and I gave him a lesson. And about halfway through, I had this out of body experience. I went, who is talking? What are all these words flowing out of my mouth? And it turns out that learning another language as an adult, there is this incubation period where you're just receiving, and it's not gradual when you start to talk. It was a dam breaking. From that moment, it was just like no one could shut me up, and not so surprisingly. So there are moments like that change you and that give you a new sense of yourself. And another thing, we were just speaking about this yesterday, there is also being abroad, learning another language, studying the humanities. It really does remove the ability for a person to see others as the other.
Yeah.
And it's in the word. As I said yesterday, we were talking human. It's in humanities. And not to get too lofty, but if I go to another country and I'm understanding the culture and I really want to immerse myself in that, and even in the language and in the history, I cease to be able to say, okay, you are an other because you are from a different country, or you're a different color, or you're of a different sexual preference. There are no others because there's human and there's human. And it whittles away at whatever you're holding on to that's allowing you to see another as other. And that is, I think, what we need more of. So endlessly.
Did you beautifully said, first of all.
Thank you.
Did you also find, like, when you came back to the United States, that you looked at it differently?
Great question. Every time I come back to the United States, I look at it differently. That was 1996. Mm-hmm. And I, went on. I had my years of being based in New York and my career there, and being on tour throughout the world with musicals and all kinds of things. And then this past chunk of my life, these 10 or 15 years where I've been primarily working on television and in film in Italy, and coming back, and within that I had periods of time where I was back in New York and what have you. It hasn't been constant. Every time I'm different. America is different, very different. Italy is different. It's just, we're all moving targets. And so, and never more than now, the entire planet has lived the most bizarre 2 years. And so we're all changed. But definitely I did that first time back after that first trip abroad, which I hadn't ever been abroad prior to that, I definitely came back and went, okay. And I did see things very differently. And that set the course for me to be open to see things differently from then on.
Yeah. I remember just for myself, the first time when I came back looking at the American dollars, they're all the same shape and the same color.
How do you know what they are? Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
So I want to talk a little bit about your experience as an Italian major. As I mentioned before when we were having lunch, you finished the same year I was hired here. So we just briefly crossed paths, although I don't think we ever met. But you knew a lot of the people that I was first working with, and I'd just love to hear your experiences. Your what that was like.
Well, one of the things that is so special about going through the humanities department or through the languages and to the top levels through to a degree is that there's sort of a natural selection process that people drop out as they decide, well, this isn't for me, or what am I going to do with this, or never mind, I want to be, whatever else in life. So by the time you get to the 400 and 500 levels, there's like a handful of you, right? So the classes get really cool. They just become these sort of rap sessions, and then you realize you're learning, even though you're just kind of sitting around talking. So my favorite memories are those last couple of semesters when I had gotten to those, the most advanced levels of everything from language to literature to politics to art, even the settings. I remember Dr. Spera would take us, we'd just go out on the mall, and I think he's watching. Ciao, Dr. Spera, le voglio bene. We'd go out on the mall, and of course, those of you who know him, he's the most phenomenal human being, but he's very elegant. He's a gentleman from Florence. But we would go out on the mall and like sit in the sun, Indian style, on the grass. And, we're all kind of like gross students, right? Like hairy armpits and sweaty. And here he's like in a perfect, like with his briefcase, and we're sitting on the lawn, on the mall. So, but it allows you within the languages to get to that level, to have these experiences that they don't feel like class. And you realize that you're learning afterwards, and that it is learning, but in this incredible atmosphere that happens kind of when you get up to that elite level. And that's really special. Mm-hmm.
And he is a ball of energy.
He is.
He's got so much energy.
He's something special. Now I'll tell you, if he's watching, I don't want to embarrass him. So, mi perdoni, dottor Spera, io adesso racconto una cosa. So, we got to be very good friends because, again, by the time you get to these 400 and 500 levels, there's like 5 of you in class, right? And so the summer after I graduated, I went back to Italy, and he happened to be there as well. And I went to Florence, and I had told him that I was going back to Florence, and I went with my father as well. And he insisted on meeting up with us in Florence. And he's a native Florentine, and they are extremely proud of their heritage. So in Italian, we say campanilismo. So campana or campanile in Italian is the church tower, the bell tower. And someone who is campanilismo, it's a sentiment of love for their home church tower or their hometown. So and Florentines are famous for this, and he's very proud of his city. So he met up with us one night. First of all, he got my father absolutely blotto drunk. Like he filled him full of wine and was holding him up by his shoulders. But then we are walking around Florence, and he said, well, now we have to go eat.
No, we have to go
We walk up to this.
You drink first.
Right, bad idea. So we walk up to this closed, it just looked like a garage with like the metal shutters closed. And he did like a secret knock. He was like, rap. And this like chef guy like peeks up under like this secret code, and he opens it, and so Dr. Spera and his friends, and perhaps his wife was there, and myself and my father, and maybe some other friends, we like snuck under this secret door, and there was like one of Florence's most renowned chefs who we were in his kitchen or something, and he cooked dinner for us. So, but this started at the U of A. This was a relationship that was born here. So that's why I tell this story, and to talk about how much I adore Dr. Spera. So
that's great. What a great story. Thank you. Well, so I want to talk a little bit about your career. So you got your degree. You then went to Broadway, and you were in. I saw it earlier, and I'm drawing a blank.
You do not have to memorize my resume. Yeah, I promise.
But why would you go from Broadway to Italy? What induced you to move to Italy, and what was that like?
That's a great question. And yesterday at the Alumni of the Year award, when I accepted my award, I used the term, I just followed the yellow brick roads. And that's the best way I can describe it. I did not make any decision. They showed up at my door, and I had to just take them. So when I got to New York, I had a number of absolutely brilliant years of working and a lot of. So for those that might not know, New York is such the mecca of musicals that productions from all over the world hold their auditions there. They come to New York to find their performers. So you could do 10 auditions a day, and maybe only one of them is for New York. 9 of them could be for anywhere in the world that they've come there just to find performers. So without trying, I kept getting hired for tours that were taking me back to Europe. So I would kind of be in New York, and I'd go to an audition, and they'd send me on a tour throughout Europe for 9 months, and I'd come home for a week and do some laundry, and then someone else would send me back to Europe. And those were years with really high highs and lots of strange lows. I was on a stage in Munich, Germany on September 11th. It was just a weird time, but I was in and out of New York a lot and working, thankfully, so well and a lot. And a yellow brick road happened. So I was contacted by a musical production in Italy that wanted a director to direct their musical, but clearly had to speak Italian because it was an Italian musical and with an Italian cast for an Italian tour. And I was like, okay. And I had just gotten done doing a few months of West Side Story in Basel, Switzerland. And I was like, and it was a rough gig and tiring wise. And so I was like, oh yeah, let me direct. I'm just going to sit backstage and give corrections. I don't want to do anything. So I took this job, and it was amazing. And it was about a 6-month gig. And then I had kind of left my life in New York suspended there because this was a 4 or 6 month contract. So I kind of had like the bills on the floor and some laundry. Like I just was suspended my life in New York, knowing I would be right back. And before I left, I was contacted by the major Italian network who said, you don't know us, but we have heard that there is this American actress who speaks Italian around, and we have this show that we've bought from the French and is a huge hit in France, and we've had it on the air here a bit, but we'd like to add a character, and we heard about you, and we were thinking, since it is a character that we have to write from scratch, it could be interesting for our writers that she is foreign. It gives her some backstory, and would you be interested in coming in and talking to us? And as so many moments of life where you just look back and you're like, oh, I'm such an idiot, I said, no.
Oh.
I said, I am a theater actress. I am a dancer. I want nothing to do with television. I've never worked on television except for a few little commercials I had done in New York. I'm going to live and die in a dusty dressing room on Broadway. That's all I've ever cared about. And just to be clear, I've seen what you do with women on Italian television, and I'm not interested. So, but thank you and have a nice day. And they called me back and said, okay, so we get it. So you're the like tough American girl. So, okay, what if you had some say in who this character is? And maybe she's not like a floozy and wearing like a Band-Aid and that's all. And I said, okay, well, now I'll listen to you. I'll listen to the phone call at least. They said, well, come in and talk to us. So I went in, and this now it's hilarious how arrogant I was, because these are now, this is like the highest execs of all network television in Italy in this big mahogany meeting room table. And they're all there in their ties. And I'm kind of like, I'm very not interested in what you're asking. I have to go home to New York. And they said, let's do this. Why don't you give us 6 weeks for us to write this character and put her on the air? And 6 weeks. If you hate it, you can leave. If she doesn't work, we'll send you home. And I said, all right, well, 6 weeks I can do. Well, famous last words, because the rest is history, because that was 2004, and those 6 weeks have turned into 17 years or so. So that was why I said I didn't decide. This came to me, and all I had to do was not be an idiot enough to not take advantage of this opportunity.
Right. So the musical, was that I Promessi Sposi?
That was the Promessi Sposi.
Can you talk a little bit about that? I only know it as a novel, and it's for people who aren't up on the Italian literature. It is the classic Italian novel from the early 19th century. How is that a musical?
Well, that is also a rather mystical experience.
Okay.
Not unlike Stevie Ray Vagon in the middle of Chianti. So, yes. So those that don't know, Alessandro Manzoni, Professor Alfie can talk better about him than I can. But hugely important part of historical Italian literature that all high school students have to read and write book reports. And not unlike, we have the Shakespeare unit coming up in 9th grade. So that's this guy for Italians. And his epic work is called I Promessi Sposi, which means the betrothed. And it's the one where the teachers say, now we're going to do the betrothed. The kids roll their eyes and go, oh God. So it's that thing like this. So there is a very well-known theatrical producer in Italy who's based in Naples named Tato Russo, who was the head of the Teatro Bellini in Naples, who writes original musicals. He had written an original musical. So all the music, everything. And this is a huge period piece like Les Mis. Yeah. I mean, hundreds of people on stage, period costumes, huge sets, immense music that had been written just for this show. Orchestrate, like 100-piece immense. So, the funny part of this story, getting back to us, is that when they called me, they said, so here are the boxes we need to tick. Director, expert in musicals, that's you. Can speak Italian, that's you. Okay, so the third box to tick is that, of course, we would never expect for some random chick from America to know anything about this show, because it's based on a work of literature that you would never have heard of. And so you're gonna also have to backpedal a little bit and read up on this. And I went, guess what? I have a degree from the University of Arizona, Italian department. And with Professor Ron Turpening, I studied this book inside and out. It was part of all the years I studied, and up until the final, I might have written like a thesis. I mean, I studied it. And there was this silence. It was like, what? And I said, I love to surprise people that way. Like when they underestimate, you know what I mean? That's the best surprise, is when they've underestimated you. So I said, I tick that third box as well. So I showed up at that theater on the first day of rehearsal, which also, for those that don't know, showing up in Naples in a theater as a woman, and I was also even quite a bit younger than now, and being the boss is not easy to have authority. So, and they were all ready to discount me, even all of the stage hands. No one was even looking me in the eye, and I had to throw a lot of tantrums to get some respect. But the point is, they were also all ready to disregard my presence there, imagining that I didn't know anything about the subject matter, but I was actually correcting them and going to the writer and saying, the script says this, but if you look back in the original work of literature, that is not what, he'd say, you're right. He'd say, how is this Texas girl teaching me about Alessandro Manzoni? But so that was, that was when you kind of skip down the street afterwards and go, yeah, I showed them. So,
well, I have to say this. So earlier this morning, I called my mom and I mentioned that we were going to be having this conversation. I mentioned I Promessi Sposi, and she even said, "Oh, that's the book all the Italian kids hate because they have to read it." Yeah. And if you didn't make it obligatory, they'd probably like it. And you have no idea how happy you've made this professorial heart that is like, oh, you read it and you then went on to use it and it was helpful with your career.
It was helpful in getting people to eat crow, which is what it's quite the most satisfactory experience, right?
So would you talk a little more about, I assume you're the only, or one of the only people who've actually had the experience. How is it different working in Italy in the artistic community from the United States? If you could talk briefly about that.
It's very different. There are many, many differences. Primarily, we were talking about in lunch, this is neither here nor there, but that stem from, in Italy, there are no unions protecting the people in the entertainment industry of any level, not actors, not makeup artists, no one. And that trickles down in a lot of ways that create, you kind of have to really be an advocate for yourself or else have really sort of pit bull agents because there's no one else protecting you. But I have to be honest, the biggest difference for me wasn't America and Italy. It's that I was thrown into the deep end head first to television, which I had no skills for at all.
Okay.
So none. And there was no time for a learning curve. There was no time to be, educated on that. This was already a professional and a very, very visible professional, gig. So, I showed up with a resume and experience that was nothing but dance and theater and was expected to be on primetime network television and hold my own with my colleagues.
Sure.
So the biggest sort of shock for me to run, you see that saying, be like a duck, like on the surface you're gliding, but underneath you're paddling like hell. That's what I was doing. And that was the biggest difficulty. So that could have been Italy or anywhere. That wasn't the deciding factor.
Can I, since we do definitely have students here, and of course it's a dream of every language student to live in Italy, any words of advice or,
people always ask me, especially Italians, strangely enough, where do you prefer? Italians always ask me, where do you prefer? And I say, you know what? There's pros and cons anywhere you live. Italy gives you, here's what I would say. I was very lucky because I always describe New York to people when they say, what's it like to live in New York? I say, New York is like being in an abusive relationship. You have someone who mistreats you all day, but then they show up with flowers,
okay,
and you forget it all. And it's such an unbelievably intense experience of highs and lows that it's emotionally exhausting to live in New York City. So that is what you need to live in Italy, is the experience of a place which has a personality like a human being, and that the amount of patience you need, because what will drive you to lose your mind, also that much will come back to you in what it gives. And New York is the only other place in the world I've ever found that does that same thing that Italy does. So try out New York first. If you can handle that intensity, then you can deal with Italy, because that's more or less what life is like there. Love and hate and love and hate and love and hate and patience.
Awesome, thank you. So you're back in the United States now. What are your plans?
Myself and my husband, who's a filmmaker, who is Italian, we're both artists and we're both nomads, and we're back in the United States, but we don't live doesn't artists live really anywhere? You just, kind of hang up your laundry in one place today and a different place tomorrow. So we are back, and he has plenty going on in Los Angeles, and I am looking at things to do here and back in Italy, back and forth. And now that the world is opening up a little bit, back and forth becomes now possible, where it hasn't been for a little while. And I'm hi to my agents in London. So subtle hint, let's find some work. They're watching us. So, just open to, now that, again, travel is possible, but also productions are possible. Both television and film for a couple of years have been halted, or else having to follow such unbelievably strict guidelines that they couldn't make it work to even produce something. And now they're finding the groove on how, okay, so we have to implement these protocols, but yet we can still go on a set. Now that all that's kind of coming back to life, I'm really excited to find out what's next.
Cool. Thank you.